Tomorrow, we officially launch the Heart of the Volunteer podcast. And before we do that, I wanted to take a few minutes by myself and answer a question that I think is fair. It's one I've been asked more than once over the last few weeks. Why? Why do this? Why start a podcast? Why put this much effort into something when you already have so much going on? Why talk about volunteer firefighting, volunteer service, and the future of our communities when there are probably a lot easier things to talk about? And the honest answer is, I don't think I can keep not doing it. That's probably the simplest way I can put it. Because the truth is, we all talk about this stuff. We all talk about the volunteer shortage. We all talk about people not showing up like they used to. We talk about departments struggling during the day. We talk about the same handful of people carrying more and more of the load. We talk about response times. We talk about mutual aid. We talk about burnout. We talk about how much things are changing. But at some point, talking about it in the firehouse, or inside conversations, or in comment sections, or at meetings, just isn't enough anymore. At some point, someone has to try something different. And I guess this is me trying something different. Not because I have all the answers. Trust me, I don't. Not because I think one podcast is going to fix the volunteer fire service, because it won't. Not because I think I'm the person who should be standing in front of everybody. That's not what this is. But it's because I do believe there are voices out there that people need to hear. There are stories out there that people need to understand. And there are people sitting in our communities right now who might join, who might serve, who might help, who might be looking for something more in their life, but nobody has really reached out to them in a way that makes sense yet. We keep asking, where are all the volunteers? But maybe part of the problem is we haven't done a good enough job explaining why we still do it. Not just what we do, but why we do it. Why we do this shit for free. Why it matters to drop something and go help someone when someone calls. Because if you're on the outside looking in, I get it. Volunteer firefighting probably looks like a lot. It looks like time away from your family. It looks like training nights. It looks like interrupted dinners. It looks like late nights and early mornings. It looks like danger, commitment. It looks like one more thing added to a life that already feels full. And honestly, a lot of that is true. It is a commitment. It does take time. It does ask something from you. But what I think gets lost is what it gives back. And I don't mean money. I don't mean incentives. I don't mean benefits. I mean purpose. I mean belonging. I mean standing with people who become family. I mean being part of something in your community that actually matters. And I mean knowing that when somebody's worst moment happens, there is still somebody willing to go. And that's what I want this podcast to get into. Because right now, so much of the conversation around volunteering has become mechanical. How do we recruit? How do we retain? How do we incentivize? How do we advertise? How do we get people through the door? Those are all fair questions. But I think sometimes we skip over the deeper one. Why would someone want to do this in the first place? And maybe even more importantly, why do many of us keep doing it? Why does the person with the full-time job still get up at 2 a.m? Why does the parent with kids at home still make time for drill? Why does the retired member still show up and help where they can when they don't need to, honestly? Why does someone who's already given 20, 30, 40 years still care so much? And why does a young person walk into the firehouse for the first time and somehow find a second home? That's what I want to understand. That's what I want to share. And honestly, even I need reminded of this once in a while myself. Because I've had moments where I've wondered why I keep doing it. I think a lot of us have. There are times where the responsibility gets heavy. There are times when you feel the anxiety of wondering if enough people are going to show up. There are times when you look around and realize it's the same 6 to 10 faces on the calls, the same people at training, the same people picking up the pieces to keep it from breaking. And when you're in a leadership position, that weight changes. You're not just thinking about whether you're going to the call. You're thinking about whether the truck is getting out. You're thinking about who's responding. You're thinking about whether you have a driver. You're thinking about whether you have enough people to do the job safely. And of course, you're thinking about the person waiting on the other end of that 911 call. And that can wear on you. It can. And it does. I'm not going to sit here and romanticize every part of this. There are frustrating parts. There are hard parts. There are parts that make you wonder if you really understand what's even happening behind the scenes. Because from the outside, most of the time, things still look like they work. The trucks show up. The call gets handled. The emergency ends. And everybody moves on. But what people don't always see is how thin that line has become in some places. They don't see the scramble behind the response. They don't see the department trying to cover the same area with fewer people available. They don't see the daytime struggles. They don't see the missed family dinners, the training hours, the meetings, the fundraising, the maintenance, the paperwork, the emotional weight. They don't see the few carrying the many. And that's part of why I'm doing this, because if people don't understand the reality, they can't value the people still holding it together. And if they don't value it, they won't protect it until they need it. That matters to me. It probably matters more because I grew up around this, and I want my kids to grow up around it and lead it someday. It matters because what I've seen from the volunteer fire service, I've seen what it can do for a person. I've seen what it's done for me. I've seen how it gives you confidence, how it gives you responsibility. It teaches you how to show up when it's inconvenient. How it puts you shoulder to shoulder with people you may have never known otherwise. How it makes you a part of your town in a way that very few things still do. It teaches you about accountability. And I think that's one of the bigger things we're losing. We're not just losing volunteers, we're losing connection. We're losing the old idea that a community is something you participate in, not just something you live inside of. We're losing the belief that ordinary people can still step forward and do extraordinary things for the people around them. And I don't want to lose that without at least trying to fight for it. That's what this really is. It's me trying to fight for something I still believe in. Not with anger, not by blaming everybody, not by shaming people who don't volunteer, but by telling better stories. Having real conversations, by reminding people that this tradition is still alive, but it needs people. And not just any people, it needs willing people. And that's something I keep coming back to. I'm not making this podcast for the person who needs to be begged. I'm not making it for the person who needs every incentive in the world before they decide their community is worth their time. I understand incentives are part of the conversations. I do. I'm not against helping volunteers. I'm not against making it easier for people to serve. I'm not against benefits or tax breaks or programs that remove barriers. But that can't be the whole message. That can't be your why. Because at the center of this, there still has to be a person who wants to help. There still has to be a person who sees something happening in their community and says, I can do something. I want to do something. I need to do something. There still has to be a person who recognizes that this matters. And that's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to the person who maybe has thought about joining, but just never walked through the door. I'm talking to the person who drives past the firehouse and wonders what it would be like. I'm talking to the person who thinks they're too busy, but deep down, they know they make times for things that matter. I'm talking to the person who misses being part of a team, and the person who wants their life to mean something beyond work, bills, routines, and scrolling through their phone at night. I'm talking to the person who still believes community means something, because I think those people are still out there. I really do. And if there's one thing these first conversations have already reminded me, it's that the heart of the volunteer is not dead, not even close. I've already had the chance to sit down with dozens of people from different states, different departments, different backgrounds, different stages of life, and the common threads are impossible to miss. Purpose, family, belonging, service, culture, pride, responsibility. the need to be part of something bigger than yourself. You hear it over and over again. If not me, then who? Different accents, different towns, different call volumes, different problems. Same heart. And that's what matters. Because sometimes when you're inside your own department, inside your own frustrations, inside your own little corner of the world, it can start to feel like you're the only one dealing with this. And you're not. And that's another reason I'm doing this. I want volunteers to hear from other volunteers and realize they're not alone. I want the firefighter in a small department who feels like their company is barely hanging on to hear someone else say, we're facing that too. I want the new member to hear that everybody starts somewhere. I want the person who stepped away to maybe remember why they cared in the first place. And I want the public to hear it too. Because if this podcast only reaches firefighters, then we're only talking to ourselves again. We failed. So that's not enough. We need to shift the public into this conversation. We need the people we serve to understand what's happening. We need to understand that the fire department just doesn't magically exist. It exists because people make it exist. People train. People answer. People maintain equipment. People miss things. People give time they don't always have. People keep showing up. And if fewer people are willing to do that, eventually something gives. That's not fear-mongering, that's just reality. But I don't want this podcast to be all doom and gloom either, because that's not the full story. The full story is that it's still one of the most meaningful things a person can be a part of. And I think sometimes we've gotten so focused on the struggle that we've forgotten to show the beauty of it. We've forgotten to tell people what it feels like to belong to a crew, what it feels like to learn something difficult and then use it when someone needs you, what it feels like to stand at a scene and know your presence mattered, what it feels like to have little kids wave at the truck as they dream to be like you someday, what it feels like when someone in town knows they can count on you, what it feels like to be part of a tradition that existed before you and hopefully will continue long after you. That matters. And I think we need to say that more. Because people are looking for purpose. I do believe that. Maybe now more than ever. People are busy, sure. People are distracted, yeah. People are stretched thin, absolutely. But people are also lonely. People are disconnected. People are searching for something real. And the volunteer fire service, at its best, offers something incredibly real. It's not perfect. No department is. No organization is perfect. Of course, there's politics. There's personalities. There's frustrations. There's nights where you wonder why you're even still doing it. But there are also moments that remind you exactly why. And those moments matter much more than the frustrations. At least they should. And I want to say something about leadership too, because I think this matters. One of the biggest reasons people walk away from organizations like this is poor leadership. And honestly, in some cases, I get it. I've lived through good and bad leadership. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that bad leadership doesn't drive good people out. It does. It can drain people. It can discourage people. It can make something that should feel meaningful start to feel heavy, political, pointless. But I also believe leadership doesn't only come from the top down. Sometimes leadership starts from the bottom up. Sometimes it starts with the person who keeps showing up with the right attitude, the person who helps the new member, the person who refuses to add to the negativity, the person who does the work even when nobody gives a shit or gives them credit, frankly. Who cares? Most people don't. It's the person who decides that their commitment to the community is bigger than their frustration with whoever happens to be in charge at the moment. Because the truth is, formal leaders are temporary in this business, and unless good people aren't willing to step up, they'll be removed someday. Chiefs change, officers change, boards change, personalities change. Departments go through seasons, but the mission is bigger than any one person. And if you care about your community enough, you have to be willing to chip away at the stone. Not all at once, not overnight, but little by little, with consistency, with patience, with example, with the kind of leadership people can feel before they ever see a title beside your name. The kind of leadership that prevails eventually, but takes time. It's a long game, and that's the hard part. You have to stay committed long enough to see it through. Because if every good person leaves the moment leadership gets difficult, then the only people left shaping the future are the ones everyone was frustrated with in the first place. And I don't say that lightly. I know it's hard. I know people get tired. I know there are situations where walking away may be the healthiest choice, but I also know that most departments don't need more than one person to leave. They need one more person willing to lead from where they are. And maybe this podcast is partly me reminding myself of all this too, because I've thought about all this. I've thought about whether I should just go back to being a coach, a captain, do my job, worry about our response, focus on my department, and stop carrying the bigger anxiety. I've thought about whether I'm putting too much energy into something I can't fix. I've thought about whether anyone will care. I've thought about whether this will matter. And I think about people wondering if I'm doing this for publicity or profit. And then I always come back to the same place. Somebody has to start saying it differently, regardless of how it's interpreted. Somebody has to start putting faces and voices to the issue. Somebody has to start reminding people that this isn't just a recruitment problem. It's a community problem. It's a cultural problem. It's a connection problem. It's a people problem. And maybe, in at least some small way, storytelling can be part of the answer. Part of the thing that inspires 1,000 more to do the same. That's why this podcast isn't going to be about tactics. It's not going to be about proving who knows the most. It's not going to be about aggressive attacks versus transitional attacks or anything like that. There's plenty of places for that, including our own truck base. This is going to be about people, the why, the stories behind the sirens, the people who leave work, leave dinner, leave ball games, leave bed, leave whatever they're doing because someone else needs help. That's the heart of it. And I know the phrase, heart of the volunteer, sounds simple, but that's really what I'm trying to get to. What is it inside a person that makes them say yes? What makes them keep saying yes? What keeps them going when the department is short, when the calls are hard, when the appreciation isn't always there, when life is busy, when it would be easier not to? That's what I want to explore. I'll be honest, this project feels different for me. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've chased ideas. I've built things. I've tried to figure out how to make things work. And like a lot of people, when you build something, you think about the outcome. You think about whether it can grow, whether it can make money, whether it can become something. But with this, maybe for this first time in my life, I feel like I'm building something where little of that matters. It's not driving any of my decision making. That doesn't mean I don't want it to grow, because I do. I want it to reach people. I want it to get shared. I want departments to use it. I want communities to hear it. I want it to open doors for conversations we should be having, or should have been having, a long time ago. But the main goal is simple. I want to get the ball rolling faster, with heart. I want to get the message out. I want to give this issue a voice that feels human. Because behind every statistic about declining volunteers, there are real people. There's a chief trying to staff the next call. There's a firefighter wondering how long they can keep carrying it. There's a family at home making sacrifices too, and there's a new member trying to find their place. And there's the community that still expects someone to come help. And there's the person out there who might exactly be who their department needs, but nobody has reached them yet. That's why I'm doing this, for that person. For the volunteer who needs to hear they still matter. For the department that feels forgotten. For the community that needs to wake up before the problem becomes impossible to ignore. For the tradition that deserves more than a slow fade. Tomorrow, the podcast officially begins. And over the next several weeks, you're going to hear conversations with volunteers from all over the country. Some are from small departments. Some are from places facing serious challenges. Some are newer. Some have been around this for decades. Some conversations are heavy. Some are hopeful. Some are funny. Some are emotional. Some are simply about volunteering with little connection to the fire department at all. But every one of them, in its own way, points back to the same thing. People still care. People still show up. People still believe in serving their communities. And if we can tell those stories the right way, maybe we can reach a few more. Maybe we can remind a few people why they started. Maybe we can help a few departments feel seen. Maybe we can help someone watching or listening finally say, I've been thinking about this for a while. Maybe it's time. And if that happens, then all this was worth it. Because this was never supposed to be about me. I'm the one hosting it, yes. My name is attached to it, yes. My story is a part of it, of course, but this is much bigger than me. This is about every person who has ever answered the call when they didn't have to. Every person who gave up time nobody saw. Every person who trained on a Monday night after working all day. Every person who sat in a meeting, laughed in the bay, fixed a truck, washed hose, mentored a new member, comforted a stranger, stood in the cold, missed something at home, or carried something quietly after the call was over. That's who this is about. And if you're watching this as someone already in the fire service, I hope this podcast reminds you that what you still do matters. Reminds you that you can help fix this, even when it's frustrating, even when the numbers aren't what they used to be. It matters. And if you're watching this as someone outside the fire service, I hope you listen with an open mind. Not because everyone has to be a firefighter. Not everyone does. But every community needs people who are willing to serve in some way. And maybe your way is the fire department. Maybe your way is EMS. Maybe your way is helping behind the scenes. Maybe your way is supporting the people who go. Maybe it's in a soup kitchen or some other volunteer event. But I think all of us have to ask ourselves the same question. When your community needs people, are you only going to talk about it? Or are you going to be the one that does something about it? Or at least is willing to do something about it? That question's been sitting with me for a while. And this podcast is part of my answer. I don't know exactly where it goes. I don't know how big it gets. I don't know who it reaches or how many. But I know why I'm starting. Because I still believe in this. I still believe in the volunteer fire service. I still believe in small towns and communities that take care of their own. I still believe there are people out there looking for a place to belong. I still believe there are people who don't need to be convinced with money first, because somewhere inside them, they already understand the value of helping someone else. I still believe this is the American way. And I still believe if we tell the story the right way, people will listen. So that's why I'm doing this. That's why tomorrow matters. That's why these conversations matter. That's why I'm putting my time, my voice, and my heart into this. Because the need is real. The people are real. The stories are real. And the tradition is worth fighting for. And most of all, I love the fire service. This is the heart of the volunteer. Tomorrow, we begin.